So the difference between analog and digital are very interesting. When you're talking about an analog format, a lot of times you're talking about older formats. So for one, they're not going to have sometimes the resolution in color or just spatial resolution that the newer digital formats are going to have. Second of all, you're not going to be able to do mass reproductions. When you have a digital format, one of the advantages of digital has always been that because you're dealing with ones and zeros, you can always create multiple copies.
When I think about the differences between how an analog and a digital signal are recorded, I can't help but think back to my old high school science classes when they taught us a principle called entropy. Now, entropy is nothing more than a system's tendency toward randomness, and we find this a lot whenever we start talking about copying an analog video signal.
With analog, one of the most important parts of your workflow was managing how to get a final product with as little generational loss as possible. Every time you made a copy of this tape, whether it was to put it into the computer, to put it into the editing bay, or to make copies of it for mass production, you're losing a generation.
You see, an analog video signal is recorded by positioning millions of magnetic particles on the tape to encode the signal. Well, if you were to make a copy of the tape, the recording deck is trying to mimic the exact position of every one of those magnetic particles. Well, this is when entropy kicks in, and a little bit of randomness is introduced, which means that that copy isn't quite the same as the original. So when you play it back, you'll notice a little bit of degradation in the picture. Well, this is magnified as you make more copies. So the more copies you make, the more error is introduced, and the farther away from the original signal this new signal becomes. Well, eventually, if you make enough copies of the copy of the copy of the copy in an analog format, you will again degrade your signal so significantly that it's almost unrecognizable from the original master.
So from the very beginning, you're thinking of ways to maintain your workflow without losing that quality.
The signal will degrade and the content will degrade as you continue to make copies. Going through different workflows, that can be a real issue. When you talk about digital tape, the signal will retain itself throughout whatever process you put it through.
The other problems with analog where you're more dependent on tape media. If your tape is bad, recording conditions, you're more dependent on heads and things like this, which can actually go bad and affect your picture quality.
Digital signals record the signal much differently than analog. Now, even though you're still recording the signal to a magnetic tape, and you do this by positioning the magnetic particles, a digital signal is first converted into a binary stream, a series of ones and zeros. So instead of recording an infinite number of signals to the tape, you're recording ones and zeros, which means these magnetic particles can essentially be in one position or another. Well, entropy will still take place when you make copies of a copy of a copy. But the difference is this time, because you only have one of two possibilities, the computer or the camera is able to error correct and adjust for any entropy that takes place, resulting in a much, much, much more stable signal and much better quality as you start making copies over the generations.
The beauty of digital is that you can then grab this footage that you capture on your camera, transfer it to your computer digitally so it's lossless, edit it in a lossless way, do everything you want to it, add graphics and everything, and then print it out without only having to compress once again. So you're only losing, not really even losing, you're actually just recompressing once, and technically not losing a generation at all in the process.
You don't have to look long or hard to hear about how these new digital technologies are affecting communications in virtually every discipline. Hollywood is not by any stretch of the imagination the least affected by these new disciplines or by these new toys. Personal computer technology with some state-of-the-art software nowadays is empowering just about anybody who's got a vision to put that vision on video, bring it into the computer, manipulate it to some desired end result, and then deliver that to the masses. These software tools are just incredibly powerful, very inexpensive, available to the widest variety of people, easy to learn, and just opening up all kinds of new opportunities for people to get their messaging out.
So it makes for a much cleaner workflow at the end.
In 2003, 45% of our tape that we sold to the pro end user market, television shows specifically, was analog Betacam tape. That has decreased as digital Betacam tape has increased. And so therefore, a couple years later, we're already at a situation where digital Betacam is our largest selling product of over 1,000 part numbers that we have in the distribution channel for Pro Media tape. And that's definitely what's happening out there in the post-production community. There still is a call for Betacam SP. There's, I think, 75,000 Betacam SP decks in usage right now just in the Los Angeles Burbank market. It's an incredible amount. Some of the post houses have hundreds of machines operating. Digital Betacam machines are about 50,000 approximately in the population and growing. Betacam SP machines are not being made anymore, but the tape is still obviously being made because there's a demand for that type of product to work on projects and that kind of thing. But there definitely is a change happening where digital Betacam, in the terms of Betacam tapes, digital Betacam is overcoming Betacam SP in popularity.